Okay. Did you ever come across racism when you were growing up?
Actually, as a young kid, I was brought up in a very Afro-Caribbean neighbourhood, so there wasn't much racism where I was. Funnily enough, the first time I encountered it was playing football and coming out of my environment, and maybe being the one of only one or two black guys in a team was the first time that I encountered anything like that.
Okay. What would your advice be to a young person who is suffering from racism?
I think tell the relevant authorities. I think it's hard for you not to take matters into your own hands, and I think that's something you need to think about as an individual. But I think if you can tell someone, if you can speak about it, if you can go and tell someone who's in charge, I think that would be the correct way to deal with it.
Do you think that people who've settled in Britain from other countries, have added to British culture?
Without a doubt, I don't think there's any doubt that multiculturalism in this community has allowed us to encounter different things and for different cultures to thrive. And I think the whole experience of living in England now would be poorer without all the different people who've made their way to the shores.
If you could talk about football as an example of people coming together.
I think we look at the different nationalities, the different races involved in football. I think it brings it to another level, really. Different cultures have different things that they bring to the table, and it's such a multicultural game now. There's so many different people involved from different places of the world. It definitely makes the game richer, and it brings something new, a different sort of flavour to our many leagues. I believe our leagues are the best in the world, so to have people from all over the world really adds something to it. I think the way football has integrated itself over the past 20 years can be an example to everyone. We still have issues, there's still things we need to tackle, but I think as a marker, I think football's done a great job to try to welcome different cultures, welcome different people. There's still bridges to be built, and there's still things to improve on, but I think certainly people will look at football and see that it's been something that's brought people together, and I think people had certain views, have certainly changed them over the time, over the years, with people from different nationalities playing for their team, people with different races. Like I said, there is a long way to go, but I think it certainly is something to be applauded.
How do you feel about people using racist words to describe themselves?
Yeah, that's a hard cultural issue. I think some people try to take the negative and turn it into a positive. There's certain words that as an adult I wouldn't use because I don't like it to be said in that way, but I understand and I respect the right of people to use those particular things amongst themselves if that's the way they feel about their experience. I understand that it makes some people uncomfortable, but if that's the way some people feel about it, then for me it doesn't offend me, but it's not something I choose to do myself.
Perfect. What role do you think the media has in people's racist beliefs?
I think it has a huge role to play. I think the understanding that it's not acceptable in our communities and our societies at the moment in time is something that needs to be upheld within the media. I think it's done a pretty good job, and I think some of the issues that have been raised via the media has been good. At the same time, it's a responsibility that shouldn't be taken lightly, and I think it should always be focused on the fact that the media has a huge role to play in terms of the way people view each other and the way they treat each other.
Can you see how the media has maybe not told the whole truth about a football or a football story? Can you see how that could reflect on wider society or different groups as well?
I think it's such a touchy subject in terms of the way stories are portrayed and people are perceived. It's certainly something that people have to be very wary about, the way that they make judgments about whole sectors of society through one person's beliefs or one person's actions, and I think we have to be very cautious when we look at a group of people and put them in one box because of what another person might and might not have done.
There's a lot of anti-Muslim feeling in the media. Have you played with any Muslim players or any experience?
Yeah, I've certainly played with many Muslim players, and to a man, I found them to be fantastic professionals, very, very good at what they do and very, very focused on what they do within the confines of their religion. And they're people I respect very much, and I respect that they're the ones that I've come across personally they've been very devout in their beliefs, but nevertheless have always worked tirelessly to be the best footballers they can be. So it's never been a problem with me with any of the players I've played with, and I very much respect their beliefs and their belief system, and it's never been a problem for me or in a dressing room I've been part of.
Is it better to say black or coloured when describing somebody?
I guess it must be hard for everybody to keep up to date with what the acceptable terms are. From my point of view, black has always been the way I've been happy to be portrayed, and those around me, I haven't heard anyone say that they prefer the use of the word coloured. I knew there was a time when coloured was maybe the acceptable term, but things move on. I think at this minute in time, black is the acceptable term.
Can you think of any time when racism might be acceptable?
No, I can't. No, I don't think from anyone racism is acceptable in any way, shape or form. No, in humour there's ways of being funny and ways of bringing stuff up, but I certainly don't think racism is, or race is certainly something to be spoken about in that manner. It's something that is very emotive, and I think it should possibly be left alone.
For many reasons, people are afraid to report racism. What advice would you have for them, and why is it so important to report it?
I think it's important to stand up to it and to make it an issue. If something's happened to yourself, it's easy to sweep it under the carpet and think, I just don't want to bring it up, or I don't want to be the one to call it out. But I think if you're not doing that, you're doing a disservice to the next person who might have to deal with what you've been through, and you're allowing that person to believe that his or her view is okay. And it's not okay in modern day society. It's not something that we should accept. It's not something that should be allowed to happen. So as much as it might, put a burden on you, it's important that, people who've gone before you have had to put up with much harsher things. And I think that it's almost what you need to do. If something like that happens to you, you need to report it to someone and make it an issue.
In what ways is racism different from other kinds of bullying? Is calling someone ginger or fat the same as calling them a racist name?
I think no level of bullying or that sort of banter is okay, but certainly where race comes into it, especially the black culture where people have been persecuted and murdered and so many different things, so many feelings that are still raw about that issue, I certainly think it's very different. Anyone who is black knows how it feels when you talk about something that has hurt so many people and has hurt so many generations before you. At the same time, it can be done in different ways, whether you be Muslim or Indian or different culture. So I think it's something that should be very, very it's very, very emotive, and I think people need to think long and hard when they mention these things.
Perfect. And one last one. If you could give one bit of advice to somebody who was racist, what would it be?
I don't know what advice I'd give them. I think it's for their conscience to think about whether that's the correct view. Maybe a lot of people, it doesn't come from them. Maybe it comes from families. Maybe it comes from something that happened to them. But I think it's for them to think about and think about whether you can throw everyone in the same box because of your life experience.
Just following on from that then, if somebody had a family with racist ideas, what advice could you give them?
Well, you need to ask them to look in their own heart and decide whether they feel that people deserve to be meshed together in one particular box because of what someone said. Sometimes your family and your parents, they might have outdated views, and it's for you as a young adult to look at those views and really decide what you think is right and how you want to live your life and the things you believe.